So we're learning about you. You were born in Seattle. Can you tell us, is that where you came to find out about the MSCs, or how did that happen?
I think in our family we always had a knowledge of Mother Cabrini and a devotion. And then I was born at Cabrini Hospital in Seattle, and I entered the School of Nursing there. And I had thought of a vocation in high school, people that I ran around with. We were all kind of headed in that direction. And after I was in nursing, in the nursing school, I met the sisters on a personal basis. And then that's when I made up my mind.
If you could tell us how old you were when you did this, but also, did you understand the charism at that time, in that early state of your life?
I entered, I started school a year ahead. So I finished at 17 and entered in 18. I didn't really understand the charism. I had no idea what that word meant. But I saw the way the sisters lived, the way they prayed, and they were each one was an individual, and that stood out for me as more important, looking toward the future, that you didn't have to lose your identity in some way, your characteristics or your personality. And I didn't see that in some of the other orders that I was familiar with. And they were happy. It's a way of life. And it's an international missionary order. And we try to follow the devotion to the Sacred Heart, but also the lifestyle that was laid out by Mother Cabrini. And the emphasis is again on immigrants and refugees and women. And it seems like you have the option of choosing with acceptance your line of work, what your interests are, and you try to follow that. When I first started out, right after profession, we had no guarantee as to what our assignment was going to be. And I really wanted nursing. I dreaded teaching and just prayed that I wouldn't end up in a school. And it worked out that way. So I've spent my professional life in healthcare in many various forms of it. So as the hospitals started to dwindle, then moved into home care, ambulatory care, and then infirmary for sisters, for religious. And I had worked at our own infirmary in Philadelphia, and I had been a superior there, and then went back to the hospital. So it was a number of exposures. Then I ended up as administrator nurse for the Felician Sisters. And I was the first non-Felician to work for them, which was not an easy task. And the infirmary had about 65, 70 sisters, and they spoke Polish as well as the staff. And so I've had the language problem, but I had experienced that before when I was on the board of our hospital in Montreal, and it was all French. So I was used to a different language. Not that I knew it, but I could get through. So that I was able to bridge that gap. And then they began to accept me as a sister. Even though I wasn't one of them, I was part of them. So it worked out.
Could you talk a little bit about how that was accepted in the MSCs, that you were working outside the order?
I think at that time, when the hospitals were going through these major changes, it was just a given. I had found something to do, and it suited them, and they went along with it. In the beginning, the sister says, "Where are you working?" I said, "New Jersey." "Where's that?" They had no clue. And so then I would bring them over for different activities that they had there. And so then they began to understand where I was, that I wasn't out in limbo.
And the hospital you were working in was closing, and you decided with a Felician sister to do something else. Right? Could you talk about that?
There were changes with the Felician Infirmary, so then I decided it was time to move on. I had been there 8 years. Then as the mission closed down, I figured, geez, I have to do something up here. So I set a proposal. I knew the sister who had been the superior in the Felicians, and she was in a mission that was closing. And I said, why don't we get together and open up an ESL program? So she said, yeah. So we wrote it up, gave it to the provincial, and she said, yeah. So we did our research, and she provided the funding, and we started the school. And in addition to ESL, we added computer component. And so I taught computers to the ESL students, as well as a program for seniors in the parish. How we started English second language at West Park was we had a relationship with some of the instructors at Cabrini College in Radnor, and they had 3 students that they wanted to send to us to evaluate the Lower Hudson Valley for numbers of immigrants that would be interested in ESL. So they came up for 3 months and did this study, put it together, and they worked with the parishes in the area. So that was our base of how to start the program.
And you have a special interest in computers, I think, and in teaching about computers. Could you tell us who you teach computers to and why it's important?
I got involved in computers when I was running the clinic, 2nd Avenue and 8th Street, Stuyvesant Polyclinic, and we had a number of residents coming through there. And HIV was a major problem at that time, and so we had a grant for HIV, and we figured record keeping was paramount, and so we started looking into computer programs for this. And that's how it started, teaching the residents how to use the programs. And it helped with the record keeping and our presentation for the grant. And then from there, before I went to the clinic, after I left the clinic, that was it, the hospital ran 2 home care agencies, and the nurses were on laptops, which they didn't like. So they put me in there to handle the nurses and reteaching them on the use of laptops. They were pouring coffee into them and all kinds of stuff. So I not only had to do that, I had to fix laptops. I had to constantly do program updating at the main hospital. It was a heavy-duty job, but interesting.
This is great. You're giving us a window into how you're not marching in a line. Okay, jeez. So did you live in community for much of this time? And
yes.
If so, could you?
So I lived in community until I went to the Felicians, and I was driving back and forth between Dobbs Ferry and Lodi, New Jersey, and I had to cross the GW, and it was a long 45-minute drive. And I was on call, and it was getting difficult. So the provincial said, I think it would be better if you found a place closer to where you're working. So I found an apartment, and I lived in an apartment there for about 5 years.
Is there something that happened to you, or that you witnessed, or that occurred in this time that just touched your heart, that or changed the way you thought about things, or impacted you inside?
During my life, 50 years was with healthcare, and I felt getting out of that was very traumatic. What was I going to do next? And so then up at West Park, dealing with the people in that area, because West Park, of course, is not like the big city. And I had been in big cities the whole time: New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, Seattle. So this was a country setting. And to give these people that we met through the parishes, an opportunity to learn computers without any threat, in a comfortable setting, it was an experience, because I was only working with adults. And they felt like they couldn't keep up with their children anymore. Their children had grown and left, and they couldn't keep in touch with them. But with the internet, they could. So this opened up avenues that were great. Enjoyed it.
Were those necessarily immigrants or just parishioners?
Both. So I ended up working with adults that through the parish and immigration. And we had students from many different areas: Mexico, San Salvador, from some Muslim countries, Greece, Haiti, Canada. It was a big gamut.
How would you describe your current ministry?
Well, I've been here 7 months, so being in this, you want to call this infirmary or assisted living, that's all had for me. I need to get back into teaching citizenship, and I will be doing that at the shrine. So I haven't started yet, but that's the intent. So it's dividing my time between here and there.
What is it? What you say, teaching citizenship? Tell me about that.
Okay. What I'll be doing at the shrine is, the base is Cabrini Immigrant Services, which is moving up there from the Lower East Side. And so I hope to augment their program and getting referrals through them for people who, well, of course, they must have a green card. And so it means they've been here 7 years or longer. And you usually find adults that have been here 20 to 30 years that never got their citizenship. So this is usually the core you're dealing with. Very few are just getting their green card. So it's an older population. Some are in the workforce, like truck drivers that don't have a solid base. So it's a varied group.
To you personally, what do you think was most fulfilling so far in your life, in this life?
I have to say, if I look back, what was most fulfilling was working in hospitals, hospital care, patient care. So I worked in various departments, but the relationship you form with the staff and with the patients and physicians, I kind of miss that. But that's the past, it's over, and we're moving on to other things now.
What do you think are the greatest strengths of the MSCs?
From my experience, I think the greatest strength of the MSCs are we are an international order, and no matter where you're from, we still are one, and we form relationships with people we never met before, cultures we're unfamiliar with, and all of that doesn't seem to matter. There's two components. There's a spiritual component, and then there's the opportunities, camaraderie with the sisters in this order. You pray together, you live together, and you form relationships over these years, a family relationship. And it's a growth period. I'm a part of it, and it's a part of me. I couldn't consider it any other way of life right now. I appreciate this vocation and all the sisters that I've met and the works that we've done. There are so many opportunities to serve God in this order. It's pretty amazing.